Hey guys, it's Kelly from Kelly's Astrology here, and I'm sitting down with my friend Ryhan Butler today, and we're going to talk about Lunar Mansion Talismans, which is something that's kind of new for me, but Ryhan is very experienced in. So he's going to tell us a little bit about what a Lunar Mansion Talisman is, how we can make one, and why we might want to go down this road. And this is actually take two. We're having a few little tech issues today. So we'll see how we go. And Ryhan, why don't you just give us a quick recap on your background with this kind of astrology, which is sort of a different approach, isn't it, than what most people do?
Definitely different, but definitely, thankfully, kind of growing in popularity and awareness, which is always fun. I guess specifically what we're talking about here is astrological magic, or like using timing with astrology to like assist in or be a central part of a magical practice. So it's kind of a bit more technical and sort of a bit more on like the spiritual side of astrology than many of us are used to or sort of introduced as. And so it's just a little bit underground, you know?
Yeah, it's almost like this astrological magic, I guess, if that's a correct term to use. It is like an underground element of astrology that like I've been aware of, but I'm definitely starting to get more interested in. There's a ritual component, and I guess there's an interactive component where you're kind of joining your energy and your intention with physical elements to
and astrological elements,
and there you go, timing. The timing. So like electing a time at which to do a magical ritual to a particular planet, I guess. Yeah. And you've been doing this. Well, I can describe it. I certainly can't do it. You've been doing this for years though, Ryhan, haven't you?
Right, yes.
Yeah. So like and I think the topic of this conversation came up because another friend of ours, Jo, had talked about a solar talisman that she had used back when the sun was in Aries, or she had created. And so you were obviously advising people on good times and what to do. So yeah, tell us more about how we do these rituals.
Well, actually doing the rituals part is sort of like the least interesting to really talk about, because that's the part that's really up to you. Like really kind of how you want to do it and what you want to do with it is really kind of up to you. There are like certain things that you need to like check off the list to make sure that you have. But other than that, it's really just sort of like, well, what do you want to do? Like, what do you believe? Because the best thing about, in my opinion, astrological magic is that because astrology informs so much of religion already that it's really easy to just plug into any sort of existing belief system or any sort of existing magical practice. Like it's not this huge thing that you have to like change your whole belief system about. It's just like, oh, well, let's just attach this onto it. So it's really sort of a natural progression of like practicing astrology and just religion in general.
That's a really good point that you make, that so much of religious ritual and festival. Oh, and yeah, Ryhan and I do share a love of cats, so there will be feline accompaniment.
I cannot promise that will be the last time a cat needs help getting on top of the desk.
You just rescued three kittens, haven't you?
Yes.
So your cat family has grown.
Yes, that's one way. That's the nice way to put it.
Okay, so religious ritual and the astrological connections to that. I mean, do you have a couple of examples just for people? I mean, you and I are like, duh, but if you've never thought about this, I grew up in the Catholic faith and I didn't even know how the date of Easter was calculated. I'm like, it's weird that Easter is different every year. And our Good Friday celebration is sometimes in March and sometimes in April. But it wasn't until I became an astrologer years later that I learned how the date for Easter is calculated, which is you wait for the March equinox, you look for the next full moon, and the following Sunday is Easter Sunday. So there are two, like, I guess, pagan or astrological components. Is your cat assisting with your webcam?
Yes, assisting.
I love it.
The kittens recently discovered all the cords behind the desk.
Oh, and kittens love cords.
Kitten number one.
Oh, adorable.
Okay, go somewhere else. Okay.
Yes. So
this is literally my life. Like I'm doing one thing and like really trying to focus on it, and then random kitten attacks. So welcome to a snapshot of my daily life.
Ryhan Butler, medieval astrologer extraordinaire. Cat. I mean, Stephen Forrest talks about this too, that his main job is just being a cat massage therapist. So
I never thought about it that way, but
we're
that sounds like a great
company.
job.
Yeah. So religious ritual and astrology. Yeah, like other than the date of Easter, have you got some examples to share for people? So they
well, the whole Chinese calendar is based on the relationship between the sun and the moon, and they do their a lot of their religious festivals are assigned to specific dates in their lunar solar calendar, so that every holiday has the same like sort of sun moon relationship.
Oh, the same moon phase, basically. Yeah, because someone else told me the date for Chinese New Year is the second new moon after the December solstice.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, so that's a lunar celebration. And the Jewish faith has a number of their major rituals that are tied to like the sighting of the crescent moon after an equinox or what have you.
Just really... And it's like, I almost feel bad. Like, I wish I knew more about these things, but it's just like, there's just like so much and stuff. But it's really interesting. So like the idea of the planets or stars informing sort of religious observations is not new. And it's something that we've had, probably since the dawn of time. And astrological magic just sort of kind of takes that to its logical extreme and is like, okay, there's this thing that I want to do. When's the best time to do that? Which is basically elections, but this is sort of like a more spiritual form of that.
I love that. So yeah, we're using electoral astrology, which is the art of picking a moment for a particular undertaking. So rather than having a chart and reading it, we're looking to create a chart based on what we want to do. And Ryan, what you're saying is taking that a bit further. I love that, like almost taking it to its logical next step where we're engaging with the energy of that moment.
Yeah. Instead of just like doing something, we're more just like, well, you're still doing something, I guess, but instead of like having like a specific, like, oh, I'm going to start a business or, make this announcement with this election, it's a time where like such and such planetary energy is really focused or really prominent, and you can sort of collect that and then focus it towards a specific goal without necessarily having to actively do something. So like if there's a really strong like sun period or sun election, you can collect all that and you can sort of focus it towards health, and it can just sort of be there to like radiate health for you or for whoever.
That's fantastic. So the way you see this is almost like using the ritual to focus or to collect focused energy that is then sort of encapsulated in a talisman, in a physical object that you can then radiate or direct towards a person or a situation. So almost like it makes me think of like a diamond where the light comes through and it's spray. Kitty love.
They've also discovered they can climb on me. And
because your leg would, like a human leg would be perfect, like almost like a scratching post for their little nails. So collecting energy, focusing energy, and directing it towards a purpose.
Donna Woodwell described it as like collecting starlight in a bottle, and I really liked that sort of like visual like idea. Like I thought that was a really nice way to put it.
That's beautiful, collecting starlight in a bottle. And really, I think if you're into astrology, that's like a dream. Like, if we could collect some Venus light or some Jupiter light and then direct it. And I'm sure the Saturn and Mars light is good for some specific things too. Maybe
for
not.
People.
And you mentioned this Lunar Mansion Talisman. So can you just give us a quick overview of Lunar Mansions? Because that may be a new thing for some people.
So Lunar Mansions are sort of like the zodiac for the moon. Would be the only way that I could really think to kind of make it like a one-off kind of thing. And instead of tracking, the zodiac signs are done by tracking the sun's motion basically in a month. The lunar zodiac, or the lunar mansions, is done by tracking the moon's motion through a day.
Beautiful. The moon's motion through a day. Okay.
So whereas the sun takes 1 month roughly to move 30 degrees, and that's sort of a zodiac sign, the moon travels 12 degrees, almost 13 degrees in a day, and that 13-degree segment is your lunar mansion. And so there are 28 of them because that's how long it takes the moon to go around the zodiac. And it's just sort of like different stations of where you can find the moon as she kind of moves around.
Fantastic. So there's 28 of them and they're 13 degrees each. Is that like a fixed and firm rule?
Well, it's like 12 degrees and 51 minutes.
To be precise, to satisfy the Virgo students. Excellent.
But 13 is a good sort of rough
around. And so each of these mansions, from what I understand, has a theme. I guess almost like different fixed stars have themes.
Correct.
So each mansion is good for certain things or not good for certain things. Okay.
Right. A lot of it comes either from, they have a lot of different, like not symbolism, but like a lot kind of goes into why they mean what they mean. So a lot of it, like there will be sometimes where it's like relation to the sun, like from 0 degrees Aries, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like if you envision the sun's at 0 degrees, what's the relationship between the sun and the moon if the moon were at this particular mansion?
Great. Okay, so it's almost like incorporating the phase relationship,
correct.
Assuming the sun is at the Aries equinox point.
Mm-hmm.
The 0
and then
Aries.
There's connections to like the stars that it's around, or like the sign that it's in. Random cattail. No, Con, don't knock over my stuff. Or like imagery with the sign. So like the constellations in Scorpio are to be very aggressive, because
that makes
Scorpio.
Sense. Yeah.
Whereas this lunar mansions in Capricorn and Aquarius tend to be very not nice.
Because of the Saturn connection.
Whereas the mansions in Pisces are a lot nicer. And so it's just like there's a lot of that involved in it.
And just then when you were mentioning the signs, were you talking zodiac or constellation?
Zodiac.
Okay. Yeah.
Where these mansions, like the mansions I specifically mentioned, where they are in the tropical zodiac.
Perfect.
Reflects that.
Okay, cool. And so obviously there are 28 of them, and the moon goes through them each month. The moon is in each mansion. And so this particular one, you've got a particular date in mind coming up that you're kind of excited about.
Well, yeah. It's just a very handy one to have around. Everybody wants to be healthier, and this is one that's very good for that, and like a very sort of safe way, because some of them are not necessarily so safe.
Right. So they're potent, and you've got to use them correctly.
Well, they're sort of characterized differently. Like each mansion has like an image, which sort of like, it's for anybody who studied like the I Ching, it's very similar to that. Like they have like an image that you sort of derive meaning from, and their images sort of characterize them in some like really important way. And so like, I actually have a story about this mansion if I can.
Yeah.
Okay. So
what's the name of the mansion before you give us the story?
Well, the one that I'm talking about is the one that's sort of the focus of the story, that sort of exemplifies the difference between nice mansions and maybe not so nice mansions. This is the 18th mansion. It's called Alcalde, and it's the heart. It's named after Antares, the heart of the scorpion. So first mistake, it's a Scorpio mansion. Not good. And its image is of a snake. It's like a snake coiled around itself, but it's supposed to be good for healing, right?
Right.
So that's nice. So I had this problem like several years ago. Trying to think of how to characterize it. I guess I'll just I had problems with like frequent urination, basically.
Yeah. So peeing problem.
And so it got really bad to the point where like I couldn't sleep.
Yes. And you're quite a young man to have that kind of a problem.
So it's not good. And I'm just like, okay, what's the problem? And so, go to doctors and all that. And they're like, oh, you have prostatitis and all this mess. And I was like, well, that's not good. And so I was like, well, this has to get fixed now. Like, this is not okay. I need to sleep. And so I made this mansion because I was pressed for time, and you have to use what you've got, which is the sad part. It's like once you're past a good mansion, you have to find the next one or wait a month, hopefully. And so you do what you got to do. And so I used this one, and it helped. Like everything was fine. It helped, but I kept it.
You kept the talisman? Yeah.
Because I thought, well, this would be great. But apparently you can't keep this one because a few days later, like after everything got better, like after I no longer noticed a problem, which was about 3 days after making the talisman for it. I was also on like antibiotics for a couple of days at this point as well. After that had stopped, like I kept it. And then about 3 or 4 days later, I'm waking up with like really sharp pains in my kidney.
Ooh.
And I'm just like what is this? And it continued for a couple of days until I like got rid of the talisman. And it's sort of the difference because the images of a snake, it's like this thing that like crawls up inside of you and just like consumes the illness.
Right.
But then it's a predatory animal.
Yes.
So it just like tries to find something else.
It keeps consuming
and
beyond
so
the point.
It was like, hey, your kidney looks delicious. And I was like, actually, I need that.
So you disposed of the talisman, or did you destroy it?
Yeah, destroyed it.
Okay.
But that's sort of the idea. Like they can be, some of them can be very helpful for like one specific thing, but you have to like treat them differently. And so there are some like that are like, oh, special rules, like please read the warning label. And there are some like the 10th mansion, Al-Jabah, which is very much not like that.
And that's, so the 18th mansion is the one that you like, this is the one I had a problem with. And the 10th one is like, use without a caution because you really can't stuff this up.
Right. You really can't go wrong with it. This one is in Leo and it's very solar. So it's very just like reinforcing, like very warming. So it's just very like, this is great. Let's just do this.
Okay. So this is the 10th mansion of the moon and it's connected to Leo.
Yes.
Okay. I like this. And what are the degrees in the zodiac for this then?
Oh no, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, now I'm putting you on the... We can come back to it. I presume it's in Leo somewhere.
Yeah, I just don't remember the exact degrees off the top of my head. I think it's like...
And are there lists of these mansions for people who are like, oh my God, I need to know?
I actually have just recently published...
On your website?
On my website, a list of mansions and some of my experiences with them.
Excellent. Well, if you let me know the link, I'll make sure I put it under the video so people can click immediately.
Let me see if okay, so I need to, thank you for reminding me, I need to activate the link so people can get to it instead of just having it as like a floating page on my site.
And the other thing too, just while you're looking for that stuff, planetary hours. I mean, this is sort of an extrapolated concept of that. So if people aren't working with planetary hours, that's another fun thing. Do you bring that into the moment when you're doing the election for the ritual?
Not for lunar mansions, no.
Okay.
But for planets, yes, you have to.
For planetary talisman rituals. Yeah. Okay.
For lunar mansions, it's... Are you recording right now? Or are you just going to cut this out, I guess?
We're recording. Yeah, that's
great.
I think it's good to be real, you know?
I'm literally editing my site right now. I'm trying to activate this link.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that way it'll be live and ready to go.
Like literally live. Well, I need to change that. But okay. 10th mansion. Okay. Ugh. All right, so the 10th mansion I have come to discover from my website is from 25 Cancer to 8 Leo. So like that very first part of Leo is really the best part. And yeah, it's if you're not familiar with electoral astrology, then like electing for talismans is going to be kind of odd. But like it's definitely a skill you have to get, that you have to build on, but it's a little bit easier than just like electing things in general, because you have like a really specific focus. But in my newsletter, I actually have dates of when these mansions, like when it's a good time to do talismans for these mansions.
Fantastic.
And so you can always...
Ryhan, while you're talking about your wonderful website and newsletter, can you give us your web URL so people know immediately?
It's medievalastrologyguide.com.
Medievalastrologyguide.com.
Guide. G-U-I-D-E.
Oh, guide. Not
guy.
No. Yeah, not you. Guide.
Okay. A guide for medieval astrology.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of information there. Constantly trying to make more information available and all that mess. But if you sign up for the newsletter, it comes out on the solstices and equinoxes, and there's a sort of list of dates for certain mansion talismans.
For the next
and
quarter.
Even planetary, for the upcoming quarter, that you can sort of plan around, and you can go and read up about the different mansions, figure out which one you might want, and then I'm happy to take any questions about like what the election chart looks like to help people do it or to help people get started.
That's fantastic. So, I mean, this is where my interest in, I guess, astrological magic and the talismans comes from, is it really has that interactive component.
Yeah, interactive is a good way to put it.
Okay, so 10th mansion, 25 Cancer to 8 Leo. And so when the moon is in those degrees, that's all we have to look for. And then
I wish.
We've got to pick a good time of day or good supporting aspects or something too, I guess.
Typically, there are just a handful of rules. With lunar mansions, it's you want the moon in the degrees of the mansion, obviously. Like it's kind of silly not to have that. You want the moon to be in a good phase. Moon phase is really, really, really important in lunar mansions because the moon is sort of your strong focal point here. So you want to have the moon waxing when you're trying to increase something. Yep. You want the moon waning when you're trying to get rid of something. And this is really important, especially for health. And you'll have people who disagree with me, and that's fine. But when it comes to any sort of health talisman, whether you're trying to recover from an illness or just sort of like a preventative measure, I couldn't remember my word, I was going to say preemptive measure, like, that's not quite right. Or even just sort of a preventative measure, you want them in waxing, because what you want is you want to increase health, you want to increase the body. I don't think coming at it and like a waning moon trying to decrease illness it's just kind of dangerous. Like it just doesn't seem like there's an easier fix to it.
So
a more safe way to go.
The mindset is vitalize and strengthen the body rather than look to decrease the illness.
Yeah. Basically. I mean, sometimes, like I said, since a lot of it is you're working with what the planets give you, sometimes you have to do what you've got to do. So there needs to be some times where you have to, or you feel compelled to, but like you definitely want waxing for health as much as possible. You also want the moon's next aspect to be with a planet that's similar to whatever theme that you're trying to do. So like a health talisman with the moon applying a square to Saturn, probably not that great.
No.
So you want something that's more like sextiles or trines to like Sun, Jupiter, or Venus. Like that's more the right wheelhouse for health specifically. And then you want the moon angular. Like you want the moon to be the most angular planet if that's possible.
So the moon has to be closest to one of the degrees on the angle in a good phase. So waxing and then making a helpful aspect, like its next aspect, its applying aspect has to be ideally to the Sun, Venus, or Jupiter. And yeah, okay. So they sound like three simple rules, but it's actually anyone who's anyone who's done electional astrology will know that sometimes you get 2 out of 3 and you kind of got to take what you can.
That's true. And that's a good way. Like all the ones that I put out on the newsletter, check all those boxes, because if people are going to do it and be like, as like a first time or not really used to doing it, then I want to make sure that it's something that like I can get behind and be like, yes, like this will be fine. But, personally, you do what you got to do.
So that's good to know. The ones that you publish in your website are like safe, beginner level. You've ticked all the boxes, done all the hard work for us. So, because you have a particular time coming up where this mansion is really, tell me the info, because I'm going to try and put the chart up and display it.
It's Monday the 29th.
Okay. I'll just put Moon Mansion Talisman, Monday the 29th of May. Okay, so I just have to go. Now I'm having computer issues. 29th of May, 2017. And what time of day are you looking at? I'll do it for your location and then people can adjust. I'm
looking right now. We're so prepared for this, Kelly. Look at us.
I know. We rock. This is real life. Freeform. This is
my
style.
Astrology.
This is my style. So
for me, it's like around 10:30 a.m.
10:30 a.m. And you're in Dallas?
Mesquite, but Dallas is
close enough. And what house system do you use, Ryan?
Right now mine's in Placidus, but it won't matter.
Okay, right. That's true, because we're talking about angles. Okay, so because the share screen in Zoom is a little fussy, I'm just going to okay. So I'm going to actually put my screen up, Ryan. So tell us about this chart.
Sure.
Obviously you can probably see the chart on my screen now too. The moon is angular and rising and waxing and applying to the sun. So this ticks all the boxes.
All the boxes. It's even the moon's day, because it's Monday, which is a bonus.
Excellent.
But even this one you could even do earlier. Like if you wanted to if you had to get up and go, like you could probably do this earlier to where the moon was, not right on the ascendant, like as long as she's really angular. But this chart is actually really nice because you also get Venus on the midheaven. She's an Aries, so that's not, super awesome. But, having another benefic angular in a health talisman is always really good. And then Saturn and Mars are not cadent exactly, but super, super close.
Yes.
So they're out of the way.
And that's often the electional astrology trick for people who are new to that, is try and put Mars and Saturn. When you learn astrology, it's like cadent houses, they're kind of low vibe. Yeah. They're really good to put tricky energies into for elections, because you don't want the tricky stuff to be high action.
Amplified or high volume.
They're right. You're totally right. Like, I mean, they're like late in that kind of 5th and 11th house.
So it's just a really good, like really simple.
So this is the time, like Monday morning. And I know our friends in Australia might have to jiggle this chart a bit.
Yeah.
But so what should we do at this time if we're doing a moon talisman?
Hold on. Well, I know that for some, like for different locations, the moon location is going to be a little bit differently. So I just wanted to sort of like reiterate, like for anybody watching this who maybe wants to do this but can't like get this exact chart because you're in a different location.
Yep.
Like you really just want to make sure that the moon is angular and that she's applying to the sun. Because if she's like past that application to the sun, what is her application after that?
Check it out. I'm going to I'm just manipulating the chart.
Well, after that, she goes to like a sextile of Jupiter, which is fine too. So carry on. Like,
okay, so it's okay if we lose the Okay, because I'm doing it for Sydney because that's often where things change the most. Yeah, I'm just going to pop, so we can pop this chart up here. Actually, it's not too bad. It looks like it's 10:30, but on the 30th, Tuesday the 30th. Mm-hmm. Now, actually, we need to manipulate that time because you want the moon on the angle. So we've still got the sextile. That's okay. You would be okay with that?
Yeah, that's still pretty good. But yeah. Oh, no, she's not too far.
Yeah, too far. The wrong way. Hang on. Let's do this.
What program is this?
This is Solarfire.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. So.
I don't use Solarfire.
Oh, don't you?
No, I'm probably the only professional astrologer in the world that does.
No, actually, in a podcast coming up very soon, Chris and Austin and I discussed this, and Austin isn't using Solarfire right now. Chris and I do, but Austin isn't either. Actually, if you're thinking of getting Solarfire, you might want to catch our June forecast episode because there's a special offer. That's a plug for something totally different, but yeah, this is Solarfire. This is how good it works. So basically I've created, it's 30 of May 27, so the day after in Australia, which is always what happens. Australia's ahead. 10:45 a.m. in Sydney. Mm-hmm. We've got the moon on the ascendant, still applying to the sun.
Still in the mansion.
Still in the right mansion because it ends at 8 degrees, right?
It's like 8:45, I think.
So that's the thing with if the moon's past the sextile to the sun, it's out of the mansion as well.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I didn't even think about that. So if you miss the sun application, then you miss the mansion.
It. And so Ryan, you were saying, okay, not that early, that even if you have like the 0 Leo rising, that you're comfortable with that from an angular perspective.
Yeah, that's fine.
You just, I guess what we lose in Sydney is we don't have the Venus on the midheaven. We have Mercury.
You do what you got to do.
You could, but that's still the three things you said: the angular moon, the moon, obviously its mansion, and then applying to a helpful planet. And I love this sextile of the moon in Leo to the sun. Anyway, like we get it each year, and it's such a nice because the moon. I love the moon in that 60-degree kind of crescent phase where it's just really coming into its own from a phase perspective. So. Okay, cool. Okay, so these are the charts, and what you really wanted to reiterate there, Ryan, was the moon has to be earlier than 8 degrees in Leo and still applying to the sun and ideally angular. So if you need to manipulate the chart for your location, that's what you're looking for.
That's what you need to make sure that you keep.
Okay. And then so what do we do at this time?
The
last week of May. That's a holiday for you guys in the US, isn't it?
Memorial Day. So what you do at that time is, like I said, like it's kind of up to you at that point. If you already have a magical practice or whatever, then you can pretty much just kind of do that. But the main thing that needs to happen is you have to make an image.
An image.
And each talisman has or like I mentioned before, each mansion has an image that's associated with it. For the mansion that I talked about earlier that attacked my kidney, it was a snake.
Yeah.
This one is a lion. I wonder why.
Oh. Okay, so we need an image of a lion.
Yes, an image of a lion. Specifically, I think it's its face, the face of a lion.
The face of a lion. That makes sense, early Leo. I like this.
So
because this is really creative, right? Like you collect your... Yeah, okay.
It can be sort of whatever you want it to be.
But yeah, so you're giving us basically the beginner, if you've never done it before, these are the essential components. So the image, and for this one, it's the image of the face of the lion.
Face of a lion, and the image needs to be created at this time. So that's the important part.
So you actually draw it.
You can draw it. I actually print out most of my talismans with my laser printer. Super magical and super technical.
Yeah, 21st century magic. Yeah. I like it. So do you go on and find an image on a website and print it at that time, and that's the definition of it being creative at that time? Okay.
Yes, that's when it sort of physically comes into the world.
It becomes tangible. Yeah,
and it becomes tangible. And so that's when, and so what's basically happening is because you're uniting this image with this astrological surrounding, I guess, that is similar to that image, like the astrological energies, they kind of resonate and the energies kind of slap into it at that time when it's born, essentially. And so now you have this image that is technically a talisman, like that's technically the talisman, but it's not awake yet.
Oh, wow.
So you have to wake it up.
So you've created the talisman and now you have to energize or awaken it.
Yeah, you have to wake it up.
I love this.
And so each talisman is assigned like an herb.
A herb
or
for the Australians?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to say each talisman, each mansion.
Each mansion.
And star, like everything in astrological magic is sort of assigned either one specific or like a whole group of different herbs that you sort of offer up as incense.
Because I read about that actually in Ben Dykes' book, Astrological Magic. The incense can be an important component.
It's a very central component. Like you need it. The incense is itself very symbolic. It's sort of it sort of like carries up our prayers to heaven through the smoke. Yeah. And it's just sort of that connection between like the earth and the sky that the incense brings about. But it's also really important because talismans are activated by heat.
Okay, talismans are activated by heat. God, I mean, this is great.
And so so that's why you use the herb. That's another part of the reason why you use the herb, because it's on fire.
Right.
So you have this herb for the 10th mansion. It's mugwort specifically. So that smells, but it's worth it.
Okay. So we need some mugwort.
You need some mugwort.
Hit up our pagan stores or
or Amazon.
Amazon, maybe. I don't know. I guess you can grow this too.
I feel like I ordered mine through Amazon, honestly.
Yeah.
So you need your mugwort. You print out your mansion. You print out your image at the time, and then you kind of want to do this part as soon afterwards as you possibly can. I usually start my ritual, and then I've sort of written my personal rituals around this process. So like I sort of start the ritual and I sort of get everything started, and I'm like, okay, hold up everybody. And then I like go and print the image and then bring it back. So like I have that incorporated in it. Whereas other people may not choose to. They may just print the image at the time to start it and then go and do it. And that's fine. I'm just theatrical and
it's so Leo in you.
Is it though? So you want to do the awakening or activation part as soon after, because it's best to get it within sort of that same configuration.
That same chart that we've worked on.
You want to get as close to that as possible, or at least I found that helps a lot. So you get your mugwort, excuse me, and then you burn it. And then you actually, at this point, you're supposed to call the moon. And there are different ways you can do that. Picatrix has different calls to different planets within it. That's a 9th century book on astrological magic.
It's kind of the astrological magic Bible, would you say?
Yeah, that's a really great way to put it. The astrological magic Bible. It has a lot of calls in it. I honestly wouldn't be super surprised if you can find the calls online.
And these calls are like invocations to the planets?
Yes.
Okay.
Another method is you can use the Orphic hymns.
The Orphic hymns.
Yes, which are definitely online, and they can be good ways to do this sort of invocation process. So you talk to the moon, because it's the mansions, it's lunar mansions, it's her mansions. You talk to her, and then you use her to sort of connect to the spirit of the mansion itself. And then you're just like, hey, wake up, talisman, is sort of the basic way to do it. So you get your mansion image, which you should have printed out your face of the lion. And then you sort of think about what you want it to do. And you write on the talisman, you physically write on it or engrave on it in some way, its purpose in one word or as few words as possible.
Okay, so literally an intention word or a goal word. Okay.
You write it across the image of the mansion,
right across the face of the lion, or around right across the face.
Whichever way. I usually do mine right across the middle, and it lands where it lands. Yeah. But you can do it wherever, or sometimes if it's for a general health talisman, I'd maybe write it along the heart. or like if you have like a specific thing that you want help with, like you have migraines, maybe write it across the head, you know, just like you can make it like as focused as you want or just sort of as general as you want.
Love it.
And so you also have to write down the spirit's name of the mansion. And you can find that on my website. It's written there. It's RDCL, but that's on the website. That's fine. You can
RDCL is the spirit's name for this mansion. Okay.
And then you just, so my personal thing here is, in my experience, and I'd love to hear other people's experience with this too. In my experience, like celestial spirits don't respond well or understand words.
Oh, interesting.
So like talking doesn't seem to work. Like they don't get it. That's been my experience. Like whenever like I've just tried to vocally say things, it doesn't quite work well. But when I like write it down or like make an image of it or something like that, that seems to be a lot better.
A lot more effective.
Yes. And I think there's like a big like historical philosophical reason involved with it that starts with the Egyptians and then is like sort of brought out in Chinese magic too. But there's just something about words that they don't quite get, but like images or like writing or pictures seems to be a lot easier. So if you can like make it some sort of picture, or like, this is why I think making it like one word, just one word really helps a lot. It's very focused. It's very like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is my purpose.
It's very
and
clear.
It's just one word and we're done. Speaking of that, one thing that I want to mention, and this is really important too, because this freaked me out when I got started. Like talking about getting started, like getting people started.
I love it.
It's like really important to me because I'm thinking about like all the things that kept me from getting started.
Or that you did wrong when you did first start.
Well, that's the good thing. There's not a lot of wrong that you can necessarily do.
Excellent. Even better.
But in my experience so far with like planetary magic or lunar mansions is that they're not literal genies. Like they're not like, you're not gonna be like, make me a sandwich and they turn you into a sandwich. Like they're not like that. Like they understand.
Yes.
Like they really understand what you want. So you don't have to worry so much about like being really specific what you ask for in fear that something bad is going to happen because you weren't specific enough. Like as long as you've sort of aligned the nature of the mansion or spirit with what you want, there's really no way you can go wrong. It may not be super effective, but if you like ask the spirit of the 10th mansion to like fix your heart or whatever, it's not going to break it. You know, like nothing bad will happen because that's literally not a part of its nature. Like it can't do that.
It can't. So people should leave maybe their Virgo obsessive about specifics at the door.
Or just, or just like leave the fear of it at the door. Like just the fear of doing something wrong and like having to end up like pay for it with some sort of like crazy circumstance later. Like they don't really work that way.
So you're not going to make it worse, basically.
You can't make it worse unless you just like completely use the wrong mansion. Like if you try to make the 10th mansion, I don't know, like grow plants, like that's not going to work. Like it doesn't do that.
So and that's not going to kill your plants. It's just not going to do what you hope because it's the wrong alignment for that. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Wow. What else do we need to know, Ryan? I feel like you're on a roll.
I'm trying to think now. Like, what else is there? So you print your image off at the time. You do your sort of awakening ritual where you call the moon. You write what you want the mansion to do in as few words as possible across the talisman itself. Write the spirit's name on it. Oh, and then you have to wave this. You have to like wave or hold the talisman above the like in the smoke that's getting burned because it's activated by heat.
Right. And that's how it gets activated, the smoke sort of going over there. And when you said we've got to do the awakening with the hymn, that's where we do the hymn or the invocation. Either one of those will work.
Yes. And then you basically have like your awake talisman. There you have it. And then
what do you do once it's awake?
Okay. So what you do with it once it's awake will depend on what the talisman is. The one thing I can tell you is Lunar Mansion Talismans should never see sunlight.
Lunar Mansion Talisman. So we've got to keep them in the dark.
You have to keep them in the dark. I keep mine in little bags. Like I fold them up and put them in bags so they can't get hit with direct sunlight because that seems to scare them away.
So they become ineffective or null and void kind of thing.
I have terrible stories about this.
So they're a little bit like vampires in that sense.
A little bit like vampires. But like if you think about them being lunar, like it would make sense that the sun is just too much. Like the sun is just too much for them.
Yeah.
And they just can't take it. So they flee. or otherwise render it ineffective. And I lost several talismans to that one day.
That's disappointing.
It was very sad.
And so should we keep our Lunar Mansion? Because this particular talisman we're talking about in the 10th mansion coming up at the end of May, it is a general health one. So should we keep it in our bedroom or somewhere we're sleeping, or should we wear it keep it in our pocket? I mean, what do you recommend?
You can do any of those things.
Okay. On the proviso that it's in darkness.
Yeah, like you keep it wrapped up in something, like women could carry them in purses. Like you wrap them up in purses, or like any other sort of bags that you might carry. I usually have a messenger bag that I carry with me. But I do think that keeping it in your bedroom is probably smart, because that's sort of the body's natural like restoration thing anyway. And so like I usually keep them under my mattress.
That's what I was wondering, like under a pillow, under a mattress, and then they're dark. And now how long is this particular talisman like good for? Like, does it last a month and then you should replace, or can it last longer? Not necessarily.
I'm not super sure how long they last. But one thing that I do think it's good to get in the practice of. Okay, so this is one thing that's really important, is like for astrological magic in general, it's less about getting something and more about building a relationship with something like beyond yourself. So you like form this relationship with like this divine thing, and then it sort of like helps you with things as you sort of go along without your life. So the best way to do that is to do like checkups. Right. And so for like planetary talismans, I usually do checkups every week, like on that day.
Okay.
So like Venus talisman today, I'll have to do a checkup because it's Friday.
And what do you mean by a checkup?
But for Lunar Mansion talisman specifically, you want to do the checkup every time the moon gets back to that mansion. So every 28 days, you'll come back and do it. And so the checkup is just you're just sort of like giving it another shot of its herb, basically. So like for the checkups, like 28 days later, when the moon's back in that mansion, and this does not need to be elected, by the way.
Right.
Like you don't have to get the moon angular. You don't have to worry about all that fuss and stuff. You just have to get the moon in the mansion. Just make sure she's sort of back where she was. And so for the checkup, all you would do is you would bust back out your mugwort, and you would light it up again, and you would just sort of put the talisman back in it and just be like, smoke. Yeah, back in the smoke, and just be like, hey, how's it going? Thanks for everything that you've done. You know, I look forward to what you're doing, like what you're going to do in the future. And it's just sort of like reaffirming that relationship and re-empowering that spirit.
Fantastic. Like reconnecting with that energy and that intention. I like this. So that you don't have to do the invocation again or anything. It's because you've done that the first time. So you've awakened it. I even like what you said about that. You create the image and then it has to be awakened, and it has to be awakened according to the energies that you're attempting to invoke. This reminds me of John Dee in the movie Elizabeth. I don't know if you've seen that movie. I haven't seen it, no. Oh my gosh, it's almost like required for astrological learning. So he was Queen Elizabeth I's astrologer, because they often say that her coronation was elected. Yes. And I think actually John Dee is played by Geoffrey Rush, who's a very well-known Australian actor. I might be wrong. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, whoever plays this guy, but he's in his sort of workshop-y studio, which is like an alchemical place, and there's smoke, and, I don't know. There's something about the smoke, I guess, that you're alluding to that certainly growing up in the Catholic faith, smoke is a huge part of the ritual. There are particular church services throughout the Catholic year where and certainly at funerals and things, the smoke that comes off. And I love that idea of the smoke is what's taking your intentions up. And that's kind of makes me then think about how in the elemental hierarchy, fire is considered, air goes up, of course, but fire is the most divine because it's rising up to heaven. And so we're sort of tapping in to that heat, as you said, to activate this.
Just using the air to rise on up to get to the divine fire and see what happens after that.
Ryan, this is fantastic. I'm really excited to try this because I've never done this before, so I'm really excited to try this.
Never done it before.
I've never done a talisman before. I hear about, like, as you said, it's like this underground, like there's the, I don't know, the occult within the occult, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's definitely, I'm glad that it's coming back. I'm glad that it's being more talked about seriously, because for a long time, astrology went through like that weird period where a lot of like spiritual concepts were like sort of taken out to make it sort of like more agreeable with science, who like didn't want to be our friend anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Actually, that's one thing I did want to come back to, is you've mentioned a couple of times in our chat today about how you think this is really one of the most spiritual elements or components of astrology. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Well, to me, I think all astrology is inherently spiritual. Like, if people would ask me, like, what is astrology to you? Like, I would have to say it's divination. Like, that's its purpose. Like, it's something that connects us to something that's bigger than ourselves, and sort of reminds us that of that, I think. So I think the focus on like natal astrology has sort of like covered it up to an extent, because it's really hard to like establish a relationship with something that was just sort of handed to you. It's like, hey, this is your life now, deal with it. And it just doesn't seem that personable, even though it is your life in different ways. But when you start to go more towards traditional astrology and you get involved in like horary is where it first clicked for me, like, oh, like this is different than like, this is different. I'm not sure how else to really put that. It's like, oh, this is different now. And so with horary, you really sort of get the divinatory feeling from it. And as you start to understand that there's a reason why you ask this question under this configuration to this person to get this answer that solves the problem. Like once you start to unravel that, everything else just sort of like falls apart. And, but yeah, so I think astrological magic is like the more spiritually interactive part of it. Because in Vedic astrology, their astrological magic like tradition or culture is very, very strong with their remediations. Like this is something that never went away. Like you pray to planets as spirits, you like wear certain gemstones, you do certain like activities at certain times to like fix your relationship with potentially difficult planets in your chart, or with potentially difficult transits or activations coming up. And so, but like the Western tradition of astrological magic is very, very similar, but you just don't hear about it.
Yes. And so it got lost in our dark period where we were trying to satisfy the scientists, but it didn't get lost in India because it was a much more accepted component of culture and society.
It was a much more acceptable component of their like cultural religious practices. Like it was just like, yep, that's what you do.
Yeah.
Whereas we tried to cover it up.
And so you're happy to see this almost like a resurgence. And
it's definitely, it's fun. I think that's important. It's a lot of fun. It can be used a lot of different ways to help with a lot of different problems. And it's just sort of like one more solution to explore before just sort of like throwing up your hands like, oh, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And I definitely think it changes the name of the game when people talk about astrology or like traditional astrology being like very deterministic. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, actually we can like do literally anything.
Yeah. And that actually sort of upsets me a little bit because when you look at the traditions of astrology, they're incredibly psychological, soulful, and magical. And I mean, maybe they respect limits, but at the same time, there are these rituals that you can offer to, move the needle a little bit, I guess, or to at least soften something.
Soften the blow.
Soften, if it's a bit hard or, and that's, I think when people die, I mean, I always think of Ficino when we're talking about this kind of stuff. Marsilio Ficino, who I guess, would you say Renaissance? You can't even say he's an astrologer because he was so much more than that. Like,
it's like if you can do it, he did it. Like astrologer, doctor, philosopher, translator. I'm probably astronaut. Who knows?
He was doing all those things. Ryan, this is so good. And then I want to give a shout out to the book that kind of also prompted this. You had recommended to me a book, I think it was at SOTA last year.
Yes.
I think is it Influences?
Influences, Art, Optics, and Astrology in the Italian Renaissance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that book really available on Amazon, and I've just recently started reading it and it's blowing my mind. It's
a really good look at ways that astrology can be used that you probably never really thought of as astrology until like you understand why or like what's being envisioned. And it's really good. Like I was really surprised. I'm trying to remember, I think either I must have gotten the recommendation off of some Facebook group, and then I was just really, really surprised. It's like the sleeper astrology book of the century. It's like it's not written by an astrologer. It's written by an art history major, or not art history major. I'm sorry, art history professor. But it's about astrology in like the most like soulful, inherent way, without being like flagrantly about astrology. That it's just like, oh, I need like 7 more of these about all kinds of other things. But it's really good. Definitely recommend it. Very easy to read, and a very good insight into how people who weren't technically astrologers still used astrology.
Yeah, in their art, basically. And that's a good point. One thing I noticed when I was reading it, I'm like, oh my God, I could put this chapter into my beginner astrology program, because it's very easily explained in terms of the structure and the format and the function of astrology. And sometimes I find people who come and look at astrology, and I think when you don't know about astrology's depth in history and universities, you kind of forget that if you're studying history at any sort of point in human development, you will cross into learning about astrology just because the parallels. And yeah, this is a great example of that, of someone who perhaps their original interest was in astrology, but through their work with the art and the history, they have come to understand that astrology was a huge component. That. But she explains it so beautifully, and I think it's accessible, so don't feel like you have to be a practicing or a professional astrologer to read this book. If you're curious and you've understood our conversation today, you would get a lot
or even if you didn't.
I was going to say, even if you didn't, actually, the book could potentially be easier to understand than our chat today. So Ryan, any final things that you want to share for people about this particular lunar talisman, moon mansion ritual, or just astrological magic in general?
Nothing about this mansion specifically, because the good thing about the mansions is that they tend to be a little bit one-dimensional. So they're kind of easy to wrap your head around. Like, there's not a whole big thing to do about it. But one thing that I did want to talk about was for anybody, I mentioned before that getting started in astrological magic and like talking to people about it, or just talking about getting started in general, is really important to me. Because I went through a phase where I was like interested in it for like several years, but I was super scared to do anything, because I was like, I mean, this is astrological magic. Like, we're getting spirits involved. Like, I think I need an adult, like I felt like I needed something. But once I got started, it was easy.
Cool.
And like, I think that's important. Like, it was just an easy thing. So I really encourage anybody who's interested, but maybe like scared or cautious, don't be. Everything's going to be fine. And I've actually started to prepare starter packs for astrological magic to get people started, specifically with planets.
So this is a real passion of yours, obviously.
Yes. And so right now I got planetary magic starter packs for Jupiter available and ready to go. Jupiter's a really great, like, people often ask, like, oh, well, who should I start with? Like, what planet should I start, like, my practice with? Jupiter's a really great first planet for everybody. He's not going to be mean to you. So I definitely recommend Jupiter. He was the planet I started with. He's just really, like, it's a really nice, easy flowing, stabilizing energy. It's Jupiter. Like, what's he going to do?
Jupiter. Good things will come to you.
Good things will come to you. So the planetary magic starter pack includes an engraved mirror. That's my big thing. That's how I make most of my talismans, actually, is with engraving mirrors.
Oh, beautiful.
So it comes with an engraved mirror with an image of Jupiter on it. It comes with lemon balm incense. It comes with lemon balm hydrosol, a lemon balm infused herbal oil. I included an amethyst stone, which is another stone that's important to Jupiter. I feel like I forgot something. Oh, and a candle. Yes, there's an herbal candle too. So,
and
like,
you're selling these on your website?
Yes, they're available on my website, the Jupiter packs right now. I'm going to expand to other planets as time goes by, but Jupiter's a good one to start with. But it literally has everything that you need. There's even literature included in the starter packs to help people get started, with the Orphic hymns included, with the Picatrix calls, and just with like information on how to elect for different things. And it's just literally everything that you need to get started.
This is fantastic. And the website again, Ryan, is
medievalastrologyguide.com.
That's fantastic. Oh my gosh, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. I know that certainly a bunch of my senior students are going to be lapping up this information. But if anyone out on the interwebs is enjoying it or has comments or questions, just post them in the box below. And Ryhan, I feel like we'll have to do a part 2 follow-up down the track about doing planetary talismans.
Yeah, and those are a little bit different.
Yeah, so this is our starter, and we can come back to that in the future.
Well, Lunar Mansions is actually how I got started because they are a lot simpler, so they're a good first step. Especially for talisman making.
Entry point. Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Ryhan, and thank you guys for listening.
Thanks for
we'll see you
having me.
next time.
Bye.
Bye.